Today we're continuing on in Unfinished Tales with the journey of Morwen and Nienor to Nargothrond. If you're new here, welcome to Heart of Halfling. We talk about Lord of the Rings and do some Lord of the Ring things. So let's get started. So this section begins with Morwen and Nienor now being in Doriath. They have received news about the fall of Nargothrond and all that has transpired there, and that it is strongly assumed that Mormeagol is Turin, and that Turin is either dead or enslaved by Glaurung. That the last that anybody really saw of him, he was as a stone in front of Glaurung. So Morwen and Nienor in Doriath have received this news. Morwen is heartbroken over this, but she doesn't believe that her son is dead, and so she wants to go after Turin and go find him. Well, Thingol is advising her strongly, like, this is a bad idea. You really should stay here where it's safe. Like, I can't do anything about your safety if you leave Doriath, if you leave the girdle of Melion. And Morwen is saying, like, you're the one who's being rash, not me. Like, do you honestly expect me to leave my son out there, either on the verge of death or who has already died and unburied? Like, I'm his mother. I have to go after him. And Thingol is telling her, like, look, it was your son's desire for you and Nienor to be here in safety. Stay here where it's safe. And Morwen gets upset about this because she's like, well, you didn't keep my son here, and he's out there now possibly dead. So you really expect that I'm going to stay somewhere where you can even keep my son safe? And Thingol tells her, like, look, this isn't a prison. You're free to leave if you so choose, but just understand that you're leaving our safety. And Melion is trying also to convince Morwen to stay, and she's like, look, you're right. These might be lies from Morgoth. Maybe it's just Morgoth's deceit that we're hearing right now, and Turin is still alive. I don't know, but you are free to go if you want to go. But her and Thingol are kind of like, you're going to go alone. And Melion is like, look, if you're so afraid of me going out where it's not safe, then send some people with me. And Thingol's like, no, woman, I'm not gonna, I can't tell you what to do, but I'm not gonna send my people out where it's unsafe, where there's a dragon roaming around. No. And Morwen's like, well, fine, I'm gonna do it anyways. And she marches off to her room. And now Morwen is coming to Nienor, and she makes this really odd comment, which maybe it's her own way of defense, shielding her own feelings. I don't know. She makes this weird comment of daughter of the sun, or daughter of Hurin, I'm leaving to seek after my son. Which is just a weird way of putting that. She's very much disassociating herself with her daughter. Maybe to make the parting easier for her. I don't know. But I just thought it was a weird thing to say. So she tells Nienor that she's leaving to go after Turin, and that Nienor has to stay in Doriath where it's safe. And Nienor is like, no, why? Nienor has a hard time with this and is trying to explain this to Morwen of I don't know my father and I don't know my brother, and yet I mourn for them. And now you're going to have me mourn over the one person in my family that I do know? And Nienor like, no, I'm going to go with you. And Morwen just keeps hounding Nienor that no, she needs to stay here where it's safe. And Nienor kind of shuts up about it for now. And so Morwen, the next morning, she goes ahead, gets up, and she leaves. And she's going out on her own. Now, she doesn't realize that Thingol has actually set up a little group of men, of soldiers, I guess, led by Mablung, to go and follow Morwen. And they're told to be there if she needs help, but don't reveal yourself otherwise. So Morwen is now going out to look for Turin in a region that she is not familiar with, that she doesn't know the best way to travel, that she doesn't know the trials and the hard landscape that she's about to truck through. She just goes anyways and quickly gets herself in a situation where she's tangled up and about to drown in water. Like she's at a loss now. And Mablung finally reveals himself and is like, okay, I guess she needs my help. And so he goes out to help her. And so Morwen makes this real snotty comment in this moment where she needs aid and says, is Thingol going to stay with me, or does he send help too late, or are you going to force me to come back, or kind of thing. And Mablung is just like, oh my goodness, are you going to return back to Doriath? And Morwen's like, no. And he goes, okay, then I'm here to help you and to guard you and guide you. So do you want my help? And she's like, okay, fine. And she's like, well, show me the better way to go across this. Oh, she's just so arrogant. It comes natural in the family. And so Mablung is like, okay, fine. So he now is leading her to the Twilight Mirrors, and he's leading her to Doriath. And as they're journeying through, Morwen sees off in the not too far distance a golden head. And she yells out, realizing this is Nienor. And she's now getting onto Nienor for basically doing the same thing that she's doing. And Nienor, shows up, and she's like, again, is kind of like, I am not going to mourn after the only family member I know. I'm coming with you. And, Morwen is again trying to tell her to go home or go back to Doriath, and Nienor is being just as stubborn as the rest of the family, and Morwen finally gives up. And so now Nienor is on this journey as well. And Mablung is seeing this family drama. He knows Turin, and he's like, oh my goodness, this family isn't like, this family is going through all their hardships because of their own choices. They're disregarding all of the sound counseling that they're receiving. And he says, it is by lack of counsel, not of courage, that Huron's folk bring woe to others. And he's like, this is the same with Turin. And he's like, but not with Huron. Huron wasn't like this. I don't know where they're getting this from. Obviously Morwen, I'm assuming. That's the only other family member here. If Huron was of sound mind, and Nienor and Turin were mostly raised by Morwen, and they're stubborn, I wonder where that came from then. And so Morwen, they're going on, and Morwen hears the last little bit that Mablung had said under his breath about the family. And Morwen is like, well, are you not doing this because the king has told you to? Are you just going to get news of Nargothrond and of Turin? And Mablung's like, yeah, and it's a long and dangerous way, and I gotta take you guys with me. So now, they're journeying on, and they're getting close to the shores of Narog. And Mablung is now getting this uneasy feeling of like, we're getting close to some dangerous territory. He's just feeling at unease at this moment. And so he tells the group, including Morwen, that, hey, we're gonna pause here, we're gonna stay here for the moment, and I just don't have a good feeling about what's going on. And Morwen again, just being a snot, says, won't you be glad to get rid of us? If, just let's hurry up and get this over with. Let me find my son, and then you can be done with us. And basically, and also calls him like, oh, you're just too scared to go any further. Well, Moblung gets onto her for this and rebukes her, and he's like, you fool, like you're being so foolish and hasty right now. Like, you're not helping anybody right now by acting hastily and impulsively and foolishly. We're in dangerous territory. We're going to take a moment to rest. When I know everything's clear, then we will continue on. But until then, you're going to sit here and be quiet. And so Morwen's just kind of like, okay, fine. So Moblung takes a small group of his men to go further to Nargothrond, because he was told by Thingol to go and find out what exactly happened at Nargothrond and what's going on with Turin, and to bring news of what's happened. So Moblung is doing his part of, like, the main part of his mission here. Like, I don't think Thingol really thought he could do much with Morwen, but he's like, hey, why don't you just go ahead and go to find out what's going on. So that's what Moblung's doing right now. He's going to seek out information. But he obviously knows this place was attacked by a dragon, so he's wanting to be cautious here. So he goes on, and he knows that even if something happens, there's still a group of men with Morwen and Nienor. Or, not men, I guess, but elves, with Morwen and Nienor. So he continues on, and he gets to the top of the hill, a hill, and he can see the doors of Felagron. He can see, like, the gates of Nargothrond, and everything is silent. He doesn't hear anything. He doesn't really see anything. He knows that there's probably orcs nearby. He knows that there's probably a dragon nearby, but he doesn't see anything or hear anything for the moment. And then, without any notice, boom, Glaurung appears, and now he is steaming up the water of Narog. And so the steam is coming up. It's blinding everybody. The smell of the dragon is hard for, like, the horses to drive or to ride through this. And everybody just goes into chaos. Morwen and Nienor are put on horses by the elves that are with them, which is what Moblung was counting on. Moblung finds, like, a big rock or boulder to kind of hide behind while the dragon goes by, because again, he's thinking in his mind, Morwen and Nienor are with the elves. They know immediately to put them on horses and to go back to Doriath. They're safe. I can't do anything about them. But with the dragon gone, maybe I can go and look at Nargothrond and see what's going on and see what I can find. So he waits for Glaurung to kind of slither by. Well, in the steam and stench of the dragon, Morwen and Nienor and all of the other elves, all of their horses go ballistic and begin to scatter everywhere. Morwen just gets lost in the mist. Nobody knows what happened to her, and there's never news of her again. The last thing that they hear from her is her crying out for Nienor. Nienor is on her horse and is able to kind of stay close to the elves for a short period of time, but again, the horses can't stand this stench and the blindness from the mist, and she actually gets knocked off of her horse, and it says that she falls onto the ground softly and she's okay. But, like, the other elves are being thrown around, they're getting hurt, and everybody's spread out, and nobody knows where anybody is at this moment. So Nienor, now, who has just fallen off her horse, gets up. She's completely alone. There's nobody around. And so in her mind, she's like, I'm going to go and climb back on this hill, and hopefully Moblung will come back to at least see that his men are gone, like that the elves are gone. And so Nienor climbs back up the hill. Well, when she does this, who else is climbing up the other side of this hill but Glaurung? And here the two meet. And Glaurung, looks her right in the eye, and they lock eyes with one another, and she's stuck. It says that she's strong of will, so she tries to resist this, but she can't. And Glaurung, is like, what are you looking for? Why are you here? And Nienor, trying so hard not to answer, says, I seek out Turin, but he's probably dead. And Glaurung's like, I don't know. I don't know if he's dead. But he was left here to defend women and weaklings, and everybody's gone. Everybody's dead. And he fled and left all of them here to die. So why are you seeking Turin? And she tells him that he's lying about Turin abandoning everybody. So she says, you lie. The children of Hurin are not cowards. They're not craven. We fear not. We fear nothing. And here Glaurung begins to laugh because she's just revealed that she is a child of Hurin, sister of Turin. So now he says, oh, you are a fool, just like your brother. And in this moment, and with their eyes locked, her memory vanishes. She goes into darkness. Now it describes Morwen as being without memory, without sight, without sound. Like she is blind, deaf, and mute with no memory of who she is, and is now stuck in this place. So Moblung now is exploring Nargothrond, and it's dark. It smells of dragon stench, and there's not much here, just lots of bones and just nothingness. And so he finally decides, okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave because Glaurung surely is going to come back soon, so he needs to hurry up and get out of the way. So he begins to leave, and as he leaves, he's trying to be stealthy, he's trying to be cautious, and he's able to kind of hide when he sees Glaurung slithering his way back to Nargothrond. And so he thinks he's in the clear. But Glaurung says basically like, I know you're there, Moblung, and it was ill of you to do this for Thingol. It's gotten you in trouble. And you should really hurry back up to the hill and find what I've left for you. And Glaurung then passes back into his lair. And it implies that Glaurung doesn't attack Moblung in this moment. Probably because he doesn't care, for one. But two, it says that all the fire has kind of left him. So he kind of used all his fire breath in this moment. So he needs to go and recharge. So he slithers back into Nargothrond. And Moblung now rushes to go and see what's happened. So he runs up and sees Nienor completely still, not responding to anything he's saying, anything he's doing. He's moving her around, and she's standing completely still. Like, she is not moving. She's not comprehending anything. And so now he's just like, oh my goodness, what have I done? Like, this is just an absolute mess. And so he begins now to walk Nienor because he's like, I have to go back to Doriath. Like, there's nothing else I can do to help her. I don't know where Morwen is. I don't know where anybody else is. So I'm just going to take her back to Doriath. So he begins to lead her back, and it says that, slowly, like, her hearing comes back, but she still can't see anything. She still can't say anything. She still doesn't know who she is. And they are now joined with some of the other elves that didn't die in this mist and attack by Glaurung. And so they rejoin up with Moblung, and he's starting to feel a little hopeful now, like, okay, I've got Nienor, I've got, some of my guys back, we can go back to Doriath, and it'll be okay. We'll be back in the safety of Melion. But in this moment of him thinking they're okay, they take a moment of rest, which was needed. But in this moment of rest, they're attacked by orcs. So Nienor has been laid down on this bit of grass to sleep, to rest, and then they're attacked by orcs. She wakes up not knowing what's going on, scared, and just takes off running, and just runs away from everybody because she doesn't know what's happening and she can't do anything, and she doesn't know where Moblung is or anybody else. So she leaves without saying anything. And so now Moblung and the elves that are still left have to go back to Doriath completely empty-handed. And Moblung is completely devastated by all of this. He feels like he's failed Thingol, he's failed Morwen, failed Nienor. All of this is just a mess. And so he gets back to Thingol and he's like, you need to choose somebody else to lead your hunters. Like, I've failed at this. I've dishonored myself. I'm not worthy to have this position anymore. And Melion is like, no, Moblung, you're fine. Like, you did all that you could do. You can't force Morwen and Nienor to follow you, and you guys were met by a dragon. You did the best you could do. And Thingol's like, telling him, you were sent to go and find information. Were you able to find information? Yes. It doesn't matter that what you went to go do hurt, the people that you were also guarding. And you can't help how they responded to all of that. They're their own people, and what happened. Like, there's just not much that you can do. You did what you could do. And that was kind of it. And so Thingol and Melion were completely forgiving of Moblung because, again, he was met by a dragon, and he had two very stubborn, hard-headed women that he was guiding. So there's only so much he could accomplish there. But it says that Moblung still was uneasy about this, still didn't like this. And for the next 3 years, he's now seeking out any information on Morwen and Nienor. Now, with Morwen, nobody from Doriath or Dorloman knows what happened to Morwen, which you can get a little bit of that story in the Fall of Gondolin. But as far as this goes, nobody knows what happened to Morwen. And Moblung will soon find out what happened to Nienor. So there you go. That is this section. And I just have to say, Morwen is so hard-headed, and it's so frustrating how stubborn she is. And it explains Turin's impulsive nature and stubbornness as well, because they're just making dumb choices after dumb choices after dumb choices, which again it makes me not believe that there's a curse or that Morgoth can affect their fate. I don't believe that's the case at all, because you just see all of them making such poor choices. Now, with Nienor, she made a poor choice. There's no way around that. A poor choice was made on her end by leaving the safety of the Girdle of Melion, by leaving the safety of Doriath. But while foolish that was, I can have more sympathy for Nienor because she gives a valid point of, I don't know my father, I don't know my brother, I only know you. I already mourn for these two people I don't know. Are you gonna leave me as well? Like, I feel for Nienor. Yeah, I can see her perspective of following Morwen. Not so much to be rebellious against Thingol, which I think is probably more what Morwen was doing. Like, yes, she was wanting to go out and find Turin, but I gotta think there's just some she was just being rebellious with Thingol. And I don't get that feeling with Nienor. Like, she was wanting to follow and be with the only family member that she's ever known. So I can be more sympathetic and empathetic to Nienor in that situation. But with everybody else, or at least with Morwen, like, golly, you're dumb. And Moblung tried his best to keep them straight and on the path and keep them safe. And granted, when it came to like the attack by Glaurung and the horses, there was nothing Moblung could do. There was nothing that the elves could do in that moment. It just happened the way it happened. So like, I understand that. And Melion and Thingol were understanding of that situation as well, that there's nothing Moblung could have done in that moment. So yeah, there you go. That's this chapter of this crazy journey of the children of Huron. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, of course, and I hope you guys have a blessed week, and always may your homes be filled with food and cheer. Bye.